That's me. I could put this hat on. I do have it in my jacket here. You don't recognize me, but that's who I am. This is my dog. She has a Twitter account. I know that everyone that was here yesterday followed her, I'm sure. For those who are new, make sure to follow Faith Pug, because you know, if I don't get her more followers, she'll let me know. And then I'll just give her your Twitter accounts, and it'll get ugly after that. So who the hell am I? As I showed in the first slide, my name is Shane. I've been a blogging dude for quite some time, a podcasting guy for quite some time, but ultimately I'm a nerd. So we could get really nerdy today if we really want to. This is my first book way back in 2008. Wrote 3 of them up until 2012. Then they wanted to pay less, and I said, I'm out. Sorry. And then a couple years ago, I wrote this one. It's How to Be a Blogger or Vlogger for kids. It's for 8 to 14, but I happened to glance at Amazon yesterday after my talk, and there were a couple of people that kept saying things like, I really like this book and I'm 41. So, I'm happy about that.
I know nothing about it. Like a quote.
Well, hey, it's laid out in such a way that you could drink 3 pints and still follow along, so it's great. I like the poppers. Then I have a new vlogging book coming out later this year. It's specifically about video blogging, so I don't have the cover yet. I asked for it, they told me no, so I made my own, which of course features my dog. So, today we're going to be talking about podcasting for next to nothing. So you're happy now it's not the same presentation as yesterday. Yeah?
So, hi. Yesterday you made a promise that you would put up that thing that you deleted. Did you do it?
Let it go. You probably I did find it, but I haven't put it out yet because I don't have Wi-Fi at the hotel, so yeah. When I get to my next destination, I promise. I promise. I might even do, as a good podcaster always will do, he'll make an episode about it. So I went to this conference, this guy at the back kept bugging me. Yeah. So, what do I mean by podcasting for next to nothing? The secret sauce that I always recommend for people who are starting out is, of course, a blogger.com website combined with the Internet Archive. And who here has heard of blogger.com? I would hope most people. It's the Google platform. It's been around forever. And it's always being updated and improved, so it works really well. Who here, of course, has heard of the Internet Archive? Okay, so about the same. Cool. So, why do I think that these two guys working together is going to work for most people? Of course, Blogger is free. It's easy to set up. Have you guys ever, the ones who know Blogger, you actually set up a Blogger site on it? Yeah, so it's pretty straightforward. The content does remain yours. Some people have always have said to me that they're nervous about Blogger, somehow Google absorbing their content. But like anything, they have the same terms of service that Facebook and all the big conglomerates have anyway. So, and it also, of course, plugs into a bunch of stuff. If you have a Gmail account, using Google Drive, things like that. If you're a YouTube user, it of course plugs into that directly. So, the one thing, of course, that people, again, like people who are concerned their content is going to be absorbed into the Google machine. The Google people still want you to be privacy secure, all that kind of fun stuff. They want you to make sure that you're in control of your data, and they will turn us all into Soylent Green anyway. But that's okay, because their mission is still to make sure that everything on the internet is accessible and usable. They want every bit of data they can find. They want you to find it as well. So I just want to preface that because a lot of people say Google's evil and they're going to kill everyone and absorb your data and blackmail you. Well, sure, probably. But again, it's okay. For me, anyway. I'll be dead by the time that happens, so. One person snicker, thank you. Archive.org, why do I use this? Well, because it's free, it's easy to set up, the content again remains yours, and I'm going to get into this a little bit in a bit. I hate platforms you have to pay for if you don't have to, because I do not trust platforms. They go out of business, they close, they change the rules. Archive.org, their mission, of course, is that they want to outlast everything out there currently available. And they're also really heavy into privacy and the decentralization of the internet. So basically your information is going to be all over the place rather than in one location that could have an outage. They could lose a database server and lose your information, that kind of stuff. So that's one of the bigger reasons I like them. For those who don't know what the archive.org is, it was founded by a guy named Brewster Cahill. I probably don't know how to pronounce his last name. But he's a cool guy. And he invented this thing. He was one of the partners who invented this thing called WAS, which we of course call the internet now. So he's really cool and nerdy. No? All right. But he also is the guy that created Alexa. Who's heard of Alexa? So Alexa is that thing where it ranks stuff and all those kinds of other metrics and whatnot. He was the guy that originally made it, and then he sold it for a whole bunch of money to Amazon back in like 1999 or so. Then, after that, and he got a whole pile of money for Amazon, he decided, hey, I'm going to go create this thing called the Wayback Machine and the Internet Archive. Have any of you played with the Wayback Machine? So, the Wayback Machine is essentially this device that goes out on the Internet and copies everyone's websites and holds on to it. So, you can actually go, say if you have you've had a website for the last 10 years, and you've changed it 4 or 5 times, and then you remembered, oh, that thing that I said that I deleted off of my website, you might be able to go and actually find it because they organize everything by the day that it was captured, month, and all that kind of stuff. So you can actually go back in time and find old data that may not be available now. It's really great for things like news websites where you know that article was there, but of course, if it got captured by the Wayback Machine, you can go and grab that text.
Does the website person have to, like, have it? Like,
it has to be available on the internet, yeah.
No, but does the Wayback Machine just do it on its own, or
does it on its own? It's what do they call it? Spidering the internet all the time. Like it's just going out and finding stuff, and it will return to websites. Usually, on average, I seem to find about every 3 months or so to see if there's anything new. So if you change or add blog posts or add podcasts, stuff like that, it'll capture those as well. If you're lucky, it'll capture the imagery and the MP3s, but they try to stay away from that a little bit. But once in a while, I have found old podcasts that I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that. So
let's say the Wayback.
I'll actually show you guys in a little bit. Yeah, this is the one thing about this kind of thing, about this kind of presentation, is that I kind of like to get practical and actually show you what's going on rather than just talk about it. So, and of course, like Google, the archive.org wants to provide universal access to all knowledge. That is their goal. They want to capture everything. And part of the history of the Internet Archive is that the idea was germinated by a broadcast station in the Ukraine, I think, back in like 1997 or so. The broadcast station was broadcasting their television and their news and everything else, but they weren't recording it. And so they were just pumping stuff out of the air, and that was it, it was gone. They just didn't have the resources for it. They were a very small place. And so essentially, yeah, that just sort of got, well, that's wrong because we should be able to have all this data somewhere that's accessible and freely available to everybody. So, which includes podcast episodes. So, but enough of this junk. Let's actually do something practical because I like showing stuff. I don't need to show that right now. So, here is, now, if you can't see this, come closer if you feel like it. But essentially, this is the Internet Archive. It is what drives the Wayback Machine, of course, and everything else. So, who wants to see something on the Wayback Machine? Who has a domain that they might want to find something on?
DixonJanes.blogspot.com.
All right, let's.
I think that's never changed.
Blogs.
It may not be safe for work, by the way. Sorry, just thought I'd.
That's okay. We're all friends here. We know what's going on. And I'll now do my dance number. I promised one, didn't I?
I think you've got a typo in there. Blogspot.com. should be-
Oh, you're right. You're right. I do.
Not to be picky, but.
Well, it would be sad if it didn't work. So here we go. So this is essentially what it tells you here is that, hey, by the way, it's been saved this many times between this date, so February 4th, 2006, and December 23rd of last year. So as you can see, there's this organized sort of way of going through. Apparently you did a lot of stuff in 2009. I wonder what. So let's, who pick a year.
2009.
I just said that one. So in 2009, we can see here that the information was captured quite a bit. I want to know what was going on back here. So there we go. So this is a capture of this website. And but it's a capture of this website on this day.
Oh, yeah.
Give PodCamp a chance. Montreal, September 19th. Interesting. What PodCamp were you going to? Of course, it wasn't Montreal. So.
They were dancing ladies.
I don't understand that.
Yeah.
So essentially, yeah, all of this information that's currently being displayed is hosted on the Wayback Machines. So even if he took his website offline, 3 days later, it would still be representable. We could actually read it and go through it. Some of the pictures here or there might disappear and that kind of stuff. So, but that's essentially what it does. And it's really great for keeping all kinds of data safe, which I like. I feel like I'm trying to justify the existence of the Internet Archive.
Stats? Is it keeping stats?
Sorry?
Is that keeping stats?
The stats, for that particular thing, it's keeping stats based on when it was captured and how often. Sometimes it captures it multiple times a day, depending on activity, things like that. But essentially, the stats specific are just to the capture site, nothing about the site. So, no download counts or anything like that. So, all right. So, first of all, who recognizes this interface?
Yep.
All right. So, this particular thing, what you can actually do with it is, of course, have a website. You can have all your stuff and all of your podcasts and whatnot. Now, how I actually show people to do this is, I'm going to take a show of hands. Do you want to post an episode right now? Sure. All right. Let's do that. And tell me if you're getting bored. Is anyone getting bored? Or are you riveted? You excited? You actually want to see the guts of this stuff?
Is there an in-between?
Yeah.
All right.
Upstairs, all the empty classrooms.
All right. Anybody have any audio they want to go online? No? All right, fine. I'm going to record something right now, and you guys are going to participate, because this is a live, interactive thing, and hopefully it'll work. All right. Hi, my name is Shane. I'm kind of weird. I'm standing in front of a bunch of people that only a few of them know who I am. The rest of them are like, what is he talking about? So I want you to all say something really nice about me right now. Ready? 1, 2, 3 as a group, go!
Fuck you!
Yeah, the banana. You can drink a lot.
He's standing in front of the room.
Excellent. He loves whales.
Yeah.
Smells like fresh mown hay.
Whales would love him.
Yeah.
Those were the nice things.
And silence.
While I'm adjusting the audio, could you please explain, the person who shouted out, I love whales, explain why you're saying that?
Because of yesterday's.
Because you live in Vancouver, where all the marine mammals are.
That's what I was okay.
Especially the humpback whale. That's at the end. That's the happy ending.
I'm just letting you guys go because I'm just. Wow.
Whoa.
Okay.
And this is why we all drink on Saturdays.
So true.
Do I have Baileys in my car?
Okay.
So sorry for the people who have no blogging experience whatsoever. This is a blogging website where you can create a channel, so to speak.
Correct.
Blog.
How'd you
Correct.
get there? I didn't see how you
Okay.
got there. Who's
So-
this?
And it's through Google, and it's part
The,
of
yeah, let me go back here.
Alright. So if I go to all my Google various things, one of the things it'll have is a choice to go to Blogger.
Correct.
When I go-
Now, I'm running on the assumption that you're familiar with how a blog works. Now, how many don't know how a blog works?
I gotta
Like,
finish your
absolutely, you've
No.
never seen one before. You,
I know how it works, but you skip quick past that screen to whatever you just did after the main screen there. I didn't catch what you did.
yes. Well, the first thing I'm doing actually is I'm waiting for that audio to upload to my
Oh, okay.
Google Drive. So, but essentially, yeah, very, very quickly. And I know some of you people are complete experts at this, but Shane, oops, can't spell my own name, is awesome. And that would be, of course, the title for your blog post. Now you all know this. And of course, we want to have some text. There we go. Make sure the text is filled with all kinds of context and keywords and all kinds of stuff. It's awesome.
Now above your title, would you have a blog, I don't know, like identity first that, you know, people would find it and then find these subtitles, or what? Like how do they...
Elaborate. Sorry, I'm not
Sorry,
following.
I'm sorry, guys.
So you can't do it
They're,
on-
they're
you can't
going
do it on
steps
Blogger.
back.
No. So, like, you
Sorry,
just...
what can't you do in Blogger? Sorry.
He's asking for subtext information. You don't even do the
No,
labels.
above that. Like, so your blog posts, if someone wanted to continually find them, do you have like an identity they would then like...
Are you talking about the URL? Are you talking about
Yeah,
an next
like
level?
the name of the
channel.
Blog
He's
itself.
The name of the blog, like if I wanted to follow your blog,
Right.
is there a place where I can like sort of make you a favorite like I do with podcasts, where I'm following a podcast? Can I do that with a blogger?
Correct.
I
Yes, you
can.
can. Because it's not directly on the platform. You're talking... Okay, now let me clarify one more time.
Sorry.
You're specifically talking about when you are looking at blogs or podcasts in a podcast listener?
No, a blogger. Like if I wanted to say, oh, I like what this guy says, he's funny, and I want to continually follow him. How do I do
yeah.
that?
RSS
You do it in this?
I would actually recommend that when you're actually following blogs or podcasts that you like, do it through whatever listener you're using. Because
I do that with Podbean
you
already.
jumped in, sorry.
No, there is, a blogger does give you a follow or subscribe.
It does give you the
And
follow.
subscribe.
It gives you the subscribe. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
so you can, when you log in, and you can have it, and you just can subscribe to it. Or
Under
you can use,
Yeah.
you can use Google Alerts as well.
Okay, okay, good.
Actually, that's a good call to Google Alerts because I use it quite often. But anyway, the thing that I really want to show you guys here today for this is that we have this thing called the enclosure. Now, who knows what an enclosure is? Right? Excellent. And everyone else does not. Cool. Basically, what you're going to do is you're going to put your audio link there. Where does your audio link come from? All right. Thank you, Wayback Machine. You are now done. Your presentation is complete. All right. This is the latest episode.
Can you download your feedback machine?
Yes, you can.
Oh, okay.
They have an export function, but I've also have software that I just downloaded directly straight to my machine. There's a whole bunch of ways to do it, but yeah. So this is an episode of one of my podcasts that published just the other day, and right over here is the MP3 file that gets generated. Now, I'm just going to rip through this really quickly because I want to give it some more context in a moment. And publish. Whoops. So at the end of the day, all of that has done is created a blog post that has an archive or has an audio file attached to it, and you of course can put that into a listener, podcast listener via the RSS feed. Now, that's the core of what I want to show you today. Is basically how these two things can marry together and actually work. Now, it's really technical and kind of nerdy. So I now want to open it up to basically anyone throwing questions at me so that we can actually help each other learn this in a bit more.
So where's the auto file? I don't see where's the auto file here? Where is it?
And it's probably down here, but it's also hidden as an enclosure.
If you click on the title, it
Click
should.
read more.
Or read more?
Yeah. Down under read more, yeah. Now, that's also something else that I like to do is I actually like to put a link directly in the text as well.
Yeah.
So I like to do it many different ways, but my internet apparently is not great. Wonderful.
Okay, I'm trying to understand. So you have, where is the audio file stored?
The audio file is stored on the Wayback, or not Wayback, on the Internet Archive.
On the Internet Archive?
Yeah, you
Oh,
skip that
okay.
step.
Yeah, I skipped that step because my internet's giving me grief.
Okay.
Using the Internet Archive is cheap hosting.
But
Free.
how did you get to that? I didn't see how you got there.
To here?
Yeah, from before that. How did you get there?
He's got a phone now.
Ah! I can talk about that too.
I didn't see how you got there.
Yeah. He's got a phone
But
now.
from Blogger, you went there, didn't you?
Yeah.
Correct, yeah. I only went here because this is how I store my files,
Right.
and then I would then upload it to the Internet Archive.
In Google, those 6 dots up there in sort of the top right corner, that is your menu. You click
Yeah.
on that.
Yeah.
Nope, sorry, the square.
Yeah, this one here.
Nope, higher
Oh,
shape.
this one here.
Right
Oh,
there.
yeah, I know those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you
There.
can get to
There,
Blogger
okay.
there,
Thank you.
can get to Drive there, you can get to Mail.
That's what I was trying to ask. How you got there? Okay.
Ah! Sorry, I did not understand. I apologize.
It's okay. Thank you.
No worries.
From the left over there. We're using it for 10 years. I know what
space
that is.
capacity for Blogger. Did you have like 1,000 1-hour MP3s posted up there?
For the Internet Archive specifically? Actually, let me get them off this screen because I don't want, this is actually throwing people off a little bit. Sorry, because that's just how I store stuff. But for the storage of the audio files here, it's unlimited. You can upload as much as you want. There's no limit in length of time. There's no limit in the size of file. Essentially, stuff gets stored here in perpetuity. Thank you. Totally losing my...
Long time.
Thank you. A long time.
Love you, long time.
Exactly.
You don't get
So-
stats. Like, you get stats like how many people download it.
For each of these, for every episode that I upload, there is a bunch of stats in here. This was uploaded yesterday around noon, so it's telling me that it has 17 views so far. I average 5,000, doesn't matter. I mean, I myself, as a personal podcaster, don't really care about stats too much. For the professional ones, I do. And I still use this information because this information is really accurate. It counts streaming, counts downloads, and it only allows for certain types of access to it.
It's interesting you say about the stats. I think that, yeah, when I started, I didn't care. But last couple of years, when I was promoting myself or people were asking, the stats really were helpful as far as the breadth and depth of topics that I covered. They want to know what were the relationship. I was telling them the stats because I have the stats.
Yeah.
And so they are important depending on how you're using them.
Oh, got it. Totally. Yeah.
Was that through archives?
Sorry, right there.
This may be a stupid question because I don't totally understand how an RSS feed relates to posting of the MP3 files. But that said, the other guy earlier today said something about
Mo right there.
storing storing stuff on Libsyn because they adapt to Apple's demands or Podbean or any podcast listeners' things.
So you're talking about all the metadata that goes along with.
Right. Will Internet Archive function the same way, or do you, when they say, "Oh no, it needs to be at this bit rate now" or whatever, do you need to go in and manually?
Okay, what you're talking about specifically is the Blogger platform, and the Blogger platform has a their RSS feeds automatically take all of that into account, and it pre-populates most of the data that Apple wants. Not all of it, but for my purposes and for most people that I've actually instructed on this in far greater detail about the metadata portion, is it works for what it needs to. So yeah, I mean there's a lot of other
a lot of Blogger that would do that, not the Internet.
Well, you can label it.
Correct.
There's a tag feature in Blogger where you can give keywords in Blogger. You can put like, well, 10, 20 of them over there. When you edit, you see it. On the right-hand side, the labels.
The labeling system.
Yeah, so you can, I don't know how many you're allowed to do.
25 is about, yeah.
So you can put strategic. Yeah.
You can upload video to the Internet Archive. You can upload video to YouTube as well. Yeah.
Shane,
For videos, yeah. Sorry.
can I make a suggestion really quickly?
Yes.
It seems to me, based on the questions, that some people don't understand the flow of Wayback Machine, Blogger,
Yes.
blog post, listener, or RSS feed listener. You might want to draw it or just very quickly
Can do.
illustrate what it is so people understand those relationships.
You're right. Sorry, I am.
No, it's a good comment because people don't understand how they interconnect with each other. If you're not using, if you're not using like,
And the
I understand what
why.
you're saying.
For me, it's the why too, because I'm not sure if the podcast, like if I'm going to be a blogger,
Yeah.
I'm going to be maybe a podcaster first, and what benefits are there to even just doing minimal stuff on a blog to say, hey, I did a piece today on blah blah, check it out, and then having the link rather than having a whole bunch of paragraphs writing about the topic. Is that a way to do it so that you also have that other medium of blogging as a point source for people to find your...
Correct, yes.
Okay. And I'm sorry, when they're linking on your audio file in Blogger, I just want to ask, are they just listening to it on their computer through whatever audio player they have there, or is it taking them to Podbean or Apple Music or whatever? What?
It will take. Basically, if you have your podcast on Blogger, it will be like any other place, like any other website that hosts information that has your text and your audio file.
Yeah.
It'll still show up on your whatever reader you're using, or sorry, your listener you're using.
Whatever, listening.
Yeah.
Listening. Okay. On your resident on your computer. Okay.
So you're right. So this actually illustrates an issue with my presentation, which I'm glad I'm doing this for the first time here because you're all friendly, it won't hurt me. I realized that I should have a slide that actually has, as was pointed out, that actually should have a drawing of the flow of record to upload to post and share. So bear with me a second while I dump this out and talk it out as I go. So first of all, we all know that with your blog, you're going to have some kind of recorder, right? So you're recording your podcast, either on your phone, on whatever recording setup you might have, which, by the way, Mo talked really great about all kinds of ways you can actually have it set up. So what do you do with that recording afterwards? Where does it go? And I'm going to assume that it's already edited and pristine, that you have already gone through, made it clean, made it awesome. And where does it go from there? You then are going to upload the file to the Internet Archive. So that is the MP3 file that you created. So is that making a little more sense about how the flow is actually working?
I'm wondering if the Internet Archive is just scraped by bots from time to time, how do you know that the file is going to be recognized there by it at the time that you want to bring it into Blogger?
The Wayback Machine and the Internet Archive, think of them as separate entities. The Wayback Machine is running around the Internet collecting information.
Right, okay.
The Internet Archive is a storage medium where you can actually upload. The Internet Archive allows you to upload audio, video, allows you to upload imagery, text, pretty much anything that's digital. And they allow you to do it for free and for as long as you want. The only restriction is that it needs to be public to the Internet. It cannot be hidden. There's no way to hide it.
Can I just add on this free thing? While it is free, the Internet Archive is a charitable organization that runs for free for all of us. Please donate regularly.
Thank you.
That is true. I actually donate every year when they do their funding drive. You'll notice on Wikipedia, you'll notice that Wikipedia has their funding drive every November-ish, October, somewhere in there. Internet Archive partners with Wikipedia, and they run their funding drive at the same time. But they don't say, if you don't give us money, then you can't host. Like, no, that's not a thing.
So from recording to upload to Internet Archive, I mean, I think if you use an app on your phone, like HiQ, whatever, that you're recording using your phone, and then it gets automatically uploaded using Wi-Fi to your say Google Drive.
Yeah.
From there, you're like copying the file or something to Internet.
From
Archive?
Google Drive, I would download it from there, and then I would upload it to the Internet Archive. Yes.
From your Google Drive to Internet Archive, do you have it set up so that it uploads automatically, or are you doing it manually there?
I do all of my uploading manually because I do not trust all the systems out there to do things. Like on Blogger specifically, you can actually email posts to Blogger itself. I choose not to do that because I don't particularly like that lack of control.
Right.
So because there are sometimes limitations with systems like that, so I just choose not to.
So is Internet Archive an alternative to a hosting place like Podbean?
Yes.
And do you only use Internet Archive, or do you also put it to something else, like another hosting place?
For me, all of my media, specifically the MP3 files for the podcast that I create, are all on Internet Archive.
Only?
I host them nowhere else.
Oh, and can people access them through Apple Music and stuff, through
Yep.
Internet Archive?
They can, yeah. Because that's where Blogger fits in. We'll get to that in a sec.
So do you
There was a question right here, sorry.
Do you create an account on Internet Archive?
Yes, you do, but it's a free account.
But it's separate from your website?
Correct. Behind you, just hold on 1 second.
I'm guessing here, so is the advantage of Internet Archive, it's free, it's forever, but the disadvantage is it doesn't provide stats and all that other stuff that something like this.
It provides very basic stats, and that's really it. It gives you every 24 hours it updates based on how many downloads or streams you have. It just combines them into one number, but you can actually email and request how many streams versus that. Which, again, I've only done a couple of times because I had some episodes that had some really high numbers, and I was curious if it was being gamed somehow and that kind of stuff. So,
I mean, are there any practical reasons why someone would would use something like Podbean or Libsyn as opposed to Internet Archive? There must be some sort of like, or else everyone would be using Internet Archive. Is there something like pros and cons that we're not?
well, the pros of pay services like Podbean and that sort of group of companies is that they are specifically selling information, or they're selling you statistical information about who's downloading your podcasts. The Internet Archive does very similar things, but it doesn't give you as much control as, say, Podbean would, because Podbean has way more features. And let me clarify, Internet Archive, that's just your storage. That's where it goes to be stored. If you want stats and things like that in a lot more detail, you can actually use things like Google Analytics to actually track your stats based on downloads and things like that. So there's other ways to do it. But for the purposes today, is I really want just a very basic kind of understanding of that the pay services are great. I don't ever trust them because I've had podcasts in the past about 4 or 5 different times where I've actually had data get lost because somebody stopped paying or the service went out of business. So I got into the habit about 10 years ago to say, you know what, Libsyn was fine, it did some great stuff, I don't want to pay for it anymore. Oh wait, what is this? The Internet Archive can actually come and host the stuff that I want, the way I want. So that's kind of, hopefully that answers your question.
I think it's more like for sponsorship, maybe that kind of sites.
Yeah, it could be like a tool, yeah. So once the file, of course, is uploaded to the Internet Archive, to continue the flow here, you would then create your blog post. Oh my. You create your blog post. And in that blog post, you're going to want to make sure that you have as much contextual information like text, imagery, things like that, which I always recommend for all podcasters, is that you have some text that's going to be searchable. Don't just upload an MP3 file, link it somewhere, and then that's all you do. I always like people to actually have context for everything because I have friends who are hard of hearing, I have friends who are blind, and text and things like that really help them to access information for podcasts and whatnot. So you create a blog post, and then of course you attach your audio file to that blog post, which I can go back here. So for example, I've added in my audio file link to the file. And this is what I do. This is just a personal choice. I choose to do this because I like it, because I find it is easier to access the information. I will say, link to download. And I can't type today. And then I would create a link directly to the MP3 file that I've uploaded to the Internet Archive.
So you don't have a player there?
I don't have a player here. However, if you like to tinker with technology, you can actually have a player using basic HTML tagging and things like that, which Google will allow you to do. So, which I can actually show. I'm trying to stay away from the really nerdy stuff. I'm waiting for the really, the detailed questions. If you want to get into it, we totally can. I just don't want to do that part on the screen and kind of bore people who are like, I don't ever want to do that.
But
so.
you can play directly from Blogspot, right? You just click on the title if the link is there.
Yeah.
I'm just going to help because actually in the Internet Archives, there's something called embed.
Yes.
Embed player, and you just copy that, you switch to the HTML, go to the end of your post, just copy that code and post it, and it's going to do the player from Google, from the Internet Archives.
Okay.
So you don't have to do anything.
Correct, yes.
Anything.
Okay, thank you.
And I don't do that for mine because I find it difficult to deal with the HTML that comes out of the Internet Archive. And I don't like my beginners to have to deal with it because sometimes it's too wide. I'm just saying that is a way to do it, yeah, totally.
Yeah, it's an easy, just copy it and paste it.
Okay, so if I'm a listener to podcasts on Google Play, okay, and I'm interested in, someone told me there's this great blogger who has a podcast called Talking About Stuff, and I type in the search bar, talking about stuff. Will this come up?
It will come up now specifically for that particular podcast platform on Google's end. It depends if you actually submitted it. Have we ever talked about that, or anyone ever talked about that, about how you submit things to those systems?
No, I think this is where a lot of this question is coming from.
Okay,
how does it get to his...
Yeah, so
exactly,
because that's all I am right now. I'm not a podcast producer or uploader.
Tell you what, I can actually show you that afterwards about how that process works, because for every podcast system, there is a place where you can actually submit your podcast into Google Play, but also into iTunes and things like that. It's actually a step that the podcaster must make to do that.
I thought you needed Podbean and some of those other ones to
No, not for that period. And that, so that, I'm sorry, I didn't understand earlier about that. Okay,
all right, good, I'll talk to you.
Where do you find the RSS feed when you upload your podcast?
The RSS feed is you can actually customize where it shows up, but it always shows up at the very bottom of the site.
Okay.
So since I have one thing here, it's probably going to be down here. So actually, this theme doesn't actually have it, but it's down here usually. And if you ever take an RSS feed of any blog or any podcast and put it into the system, it'll find it. It's always in the back of the code.
You can do this with WordPress too.
You can do this with WordPress, you can do it with anything. Yeah, I only pick Blogger because it is a free platform, but if you're on WordPress.com or any other platform where you're not necessarily paying for it, you can do the same thing on WordPress. Link to the files, embed them, etc.
That's what I was going to just tell everybody. I mean, it's great to use Blogger, but you can do the same thing on other sites, like WordPress, Medium, you can do the same thing.
Anything, any platform that accepts any links or any HTML code, it's the same process. Yeah.
Basically what you're doing is you're directing people. Like you got the platform, you're just directing people to go somewhere.
Exactly, and in that regard, once you've uploaded a file to Internet Archive, that's where the relationship to me showing, I don't actually send people to the Internet Archive. I'm only giving them the link that happens to go there. So it's acting merely as a storage facility for your files and whatnot. So.
If you're already in iTunes and all these other platforms, right, and you already have some podcasts there, and you're starting with the archive, you need to re-upload or reconnect with iTunes and the other directories, so...
Not necessarily. Because iTunes and those platforms don't necessarily care where the MP3s are coming from. So if you have it on one hosting service versus another, and if they're staying there, then the system doesn't really care. It just grabs what it's given. So. There was a question back over here.
Does the Wayback Machine capture all the functionality of that website from 10 years ago, or
no,
just an image?
If JavaScript is in the background, it will probably ignore it. because it doesn't want to have to deal with that, because stuff will break when you start having interactivity like that. But think of it as kind of like a snapshot of what the HTML on that page was at that time. So, yeah.
Can you show us an example of, I guess, one of your podcasts, how you laid it out on blogger.com, and then show us how it came out on like Apple Podcasts or something like that, just to see?
Yeah, I could actually. Can we take that one? Let's do that one after, because
yeah, sure.
Because that can get actually quite detailed. So. There was another question. I saw a hand.
The Internet Archive is where you're going to store your content, and therefore security is really important. Does the Internet Archive allow two-factor authentication for when you create your account?
No.
They are actually. It's supposed to be coming out sometime in, I think, August is what the blog post said, but not yet. Which was why my password is about that long.
But it's already intended for public, right? Private.
The account that you allow things to be uploaded. Yeah, just basic security for the account. Yeah.
I just had to add to his point that the Internet Archive is a free organization, so when it comes to privacy or something like that, you cannot claim your own content easily. So if you have a snapshot of your website, you cannot claim it and say that take this down, unless there's a legal problem and you have to talk. But this is something that's done on their servers, and there's no kind of
There actually is a process for a request to take things down. So I've actually done it.
Yeah, but you don't have a claim. You have to file something and to show them the case. And it's not like you can take a post from your own Facebook site and just call delete. You have to claim it, and there has to be. And if there's a legal problem, like if this website was like going into under an FBI investigation or something like that, you cannot anyway delete it if it's still under a running investigation. Just letting you know, because I work in this thing. So.
Yeah, no, I totally, that's outside of the scope of today, but yeah, definitely that is something that people should be concerned about. But not just for there, because Google does the same thing on their caching system as well.
Yeah, but you can, and Google, you can delete the post. They will keep a copy, but you can delete it from public. But in this, you don't have a claim on your data, because you just take it from the public view, and you have to go through a claim process.
Correct, yeah.
Like, I want to do this, why it's happening, and if there's something on it that's just...
Yeah, totally. I saw more hands.
So the next step after we've got our blog post, now we have to submit? Is that the step after that?
Do you mean your blog post specifically, or are you talking about? You're talking about what he's referring to.
To connect it to places like Apple and Google.
Yeah, well, we'll do that one after. We'll actually do that after, because that can get a little detailed, as I said. So yeah.
Well, I just want to know what the next step is, because we're running
out
of
sorry.
time.
Actually, I only have like 2 minutes left. So yeah. So once you've created your blog post and you've attached the MP3 file, then all you have to do after that is click publish. And it could be Blogger, it could be WordPress, it could be anything. Because basically the biggest part of the magic for making sure everything is here with my typo is on that step. So that's where you've already uploaded the file, you're now connecting the link, you're also using the embed code as well if you want to. Things of that nature. So
click publish, is that the textual thing on Blogger?
On Blogger, on WordPress, on any platform, yeah. Once you've created the post, you've attached everything correctly, hit publish, and you're done.
But how about the next step of then making that audio file,
The podcast directories.
to be
podcast directory, yeah.
available to...
We'll do that in like 2 minutes. We'll do that, unless you guys really want to... Once you've created a podcast, do you guys actually know how to submit it to podcast directories at all? Have you ever done this? No? To a podcast, you've done it? So podcast, so iTunes, stuff like that? Who wants to know? Because we have very limited time.
Or breakout room.
Excellent. That's what I was going to suggest.
Before everybody leaves, why don't we do a breakout session this afternoon, just going over like the fundamental infrastructure of a podcast workflow, and then leave the technology kind of those pieces out of it.
Exactly.
What time would that be?
What time?
Well, the next
There's
one.
one now
Yeah,
and
room
one.
229 and 357 are both open.
All right,
We're both open right
Let's
now.
do it. Who wants to go to 229? Let's go.
Unless there was something.
Right now, or is that later? Sorry.
Let's do it right now.
Right now. Let's do it fresh in minds. Let's go do it now.
There is no lunch today.
There is
is there?
no lunch.
No, there's no.
Thank you all.
229.
I'll do better next time, I promise.